Welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for January 5th, 2023. And with that, I would like to wish you all a happy new year. Let me introduce my panel. From the right, there is none other than the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey C.
You are muted. We cannot hear you.
Welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for January 5th, 2023. And with that, I would like to say a happy new year to you. I will introduce my panel from the right. There is none other than the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament, and to his right, Mr. Elson Lowe, economist. Today's press statement will be read by the Leader of the Opposition.
The PPP is racist and wicked. The government's propaganda is seeking to place the people occupying ancestral lands at Mocha in the path of the new East Bank Road. It must be made clear that the people's homes are not in the way of the road. The government's propaganda is malicious and wicked. We categorically reject the government's assertion that these families must be relocated because they are in the way of the proposed Eccles to Great Diamond Highway. It is clear that this road will pass a significant distance from these properties, and the real motivation behind these demolitions appeared to be racially motivated against the mainly Afro-Guyanese residents, as other villages on the part of the road have not been treated with this same malice. It is also clear that the PPP wants to allocate these lands to their elites, their friends, families, and favorites. The people in Mocha reported that when President Irfan Ali was Minister of Housing and Water, he visited the area and allotted them the specific numbers for the lot they had occupied. They further reported that he told them the only thing they will have to do is to place the front of their houses to face the new road, since at the time they were facing inward to Mocha. The president needs to explain his change of position on this matter. It is necessary to point out here that the Ministry of Housing plan places Caneview, where the houses are, as part of Mocha Arcadia. Additionally, the records will reveal that Guy Suku paid Mocha Arcadia local authority for the use of those lands, indicating, therefore, that they are ancestral lands. Unfortunately, the government is seeking to paint the picture that these lands belong to the government. We reaffirm the view that these lands are the property of the people of Mocha Arcadia, and therefore the residents cannot be considered squatters. People do not squat on their own lands. It is noted that the government claims that it has made arrangements with 20-odd persons who have accepted the compensation. The approach used is unacceptable, since it did not afford these residents the opportunity to have legal counsel. Many of them reported that they were bullied into accepting the government's offer. When one looks at the offer made to them, there is no indication that they have been compensated for being removed. In fact, the government merely is offering a new house to these persons without adequate compensation. This is unacceptable, as it is noted that in the very near future, on the completion of the road, the value of these lands will be more than what the government is offering at present. This approach is wicked and disempowers the people who have been occupying these lands for well over 25 years. In similar cases in PPP strongholds, people's lands were not only regularized, but in some cases where people had to move, they were adequately compensated and had legal representation. This is true about those persons who were in the path of the Berbice River Bridge. In Pigeon Island and Charity, two PPP strongholds, government regularized squatters, but now is seeking to move African Guyanese from their own lands under the pretext of promoting development. We repeat, the people of Mocha are not preventing the progress of the road. Government's action is clearly wicked and racist. We call on all fair-minded Guyanese to condemn the government's action. The opposition stands in solidarity with the residents of Caneview, Mocha, Arcadia, East Bank, Demerara, who are facing the vicious and unacceptable demolition of their homes by agents carrying out the will of the uncaring and vengeful PPPC regime. We challenge President Irfaan Ali to return to Mocha and listen to the concerns of these families who have every right to stay on their ancestral lands and be treated with dignity and respect. The government has a moral obligation to engage these families who deserve fair compensation for the loss of their homes and livelihoods should they decide to leave. We also strongly condemn the actions of the Ministry of Housing, the employees of which recently destroyed a bridge in the village. This is a blatant violation of the rights of these citizens. The bridge must be rebuilt. Residents who have decided to stay must be offered titles to their land, just as the residents of Pigeon Island, who were recently granted titles to their lands on which they have been living for decades. The Mocha families deserve to be treated the same way and have their ownership recognized and not treated as squatters on their own land. We urge the government to immediately halt the demolition of homes in Mocha, Arcadia, and to engage in fair and constructive dialogue with the affected residents to find a fair and equitable solution. The government could have avoided this ongoing conflict had it, from the inception, shown respect for the rights and concerns of the residents. Excuse me. The government could and should have held formal consultation with the residents and other community stakeholders to discuss the details of the planned roadway. Those consultations would have allowed residents and stakeholders to ask questions, raise concerns, and get answers and information. Instead, the government chooses to do nothing of the sort. True to form, it decided to display its arrogance and power drunkenness. The government chose to engage families individually so that they can bully them and impose an unfair solution. The next coalition government will not recognize the land titles of persons granted land confiscated by the PPP government along the East Bank Road link in the Mocha Arcadia area. In addition, in future, if these lands are to be distributed, those people who occupy them should have first preference. Guyanese deserve and must keep demanding more from oil revenues. This year, Guyana's GDP per capita will surpass Trinidad and Tobago. We know this not because we seek to compare ourselves with our Caribbean neighbors, but because it is a milestone that bears reflection. Apart from a few countries like Bermuda and the Cayman Islands, Trinidad and Tobago has typically been regarded as the country with the third highest GDP per capita in the Western Hemisphere. This means that by year end, Guyana will only be surpassed by the United States and Canada in the entire Western Hemisphere. We must ask ourselves throughout 2023, what standard of living should the people in the third wealthiest country in the Western Hemisphere, enjoy. Guyanese should be on track to enjoying one of the highest standards of living in the world. Sadly, due to PPP mismanagement, cronyism, and corruption, we will continue to see growing poverty and inequality. We will continue to see the average Guyanese family struggling to make ends meet as the cost of living spirals out of control. We will continue to see crowded and understaffed hospitals with poor supplies and facilities. We will continue to see Guyana ranking at the bottom of human development and quality of life indicators such as life expectancy and infant and maternal mortality. In President Ali's recent interview with Al Jazeera, he glossed over the alarming poverty figures as if merely recalling the number of suits in his closet. Poverty, hunger, and equality are not pesky issues to be dismissed. They are not side issues. They are core concerns of the people. We in the opposition have placed confronting these ills at the heart of our people-centered approach because the ultimate responsibility of a government is to ensure all citizens can live comfortably, safely, healthily, and happily. To hear the current president of Guyana dismiss the topic as if disinterested in this sacred obligation is truly tragic. It explains why there is a large inflow of oil revenues into the treasury, while at the same time there is the decline in the living standard. 2023 will see Guyana's oil revenue, per capita income, and GDP growing even higher. Over US $1 billion in the Natural Resource Fund will be available to the government. We will likely see a second oil budget that is larger than the first. But impressive economic numbers and government expenditures mean little if the quality of life of most Guyanese continues to stagnate or decline, like is happening. The real test, therefore, is not just better national figures, but happier families, communities, and country. Our contract with Guyana puts people first and at the center. While in opposition, we will fight on behalf of the people to ensure the country's rich national endowment benefits all citizens in a fair and equitable manner, and not only the few selected by the PPP. As a government, we will transform Guyana into one of the best countries to live in. Response on issues raised on PNCR matters. As leader of the PNCR, I have noted a correspondence from the former treasurer of the party. First, the treasurer has never raised with me the question of racism in the party. As it relates to the signing of blank checks, the following must be noted after investigation. 1, that it is true that the treasurer signed blank checks as one of 2 signatories. 2, that the treasurer lives in Corriverton, and as I understand, blank checks because he does not come to Georgetown daily. 3, that on investigation, I am reliably informed that on his arrival at Congress Place, he would ask if there are checks to be signed. 4, that having signed those checks, when the final signatory will sign, this is done with the accompanying paperwork in keeping with good financial practices. So it is not true to say that there is no paperwork. 5, as it relates to his complaint of requesting Mrs. Valda Lawrence to audit the party accounts, the treasurer wrote me a letter dated August 18, 2022. It is not true that I did not respond. I respond in a letter dated August 22nd, 2022, stating as follows, and I quote, "Dear Treasurer, This serves to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated August 18, 2022, recommending Mrs. Valda Lawrence to be the party auditor. Please be advised that Article 16(4) of the Constitution states that, quote, the General Council shall appoint an auditor at the first meeting of the biennial delegates, the first General Council meeting after the biennial delegates Congress. In addition, it may be a conflict of interest to appoint a member of the party leadership as auditor. Forwarded for your guidance, Aubrey C. Norton, leader of the PNCR. That letter was dispatched to the former treasurer, and all of its contents were placed there. 6, as it relates to its contention that he made proposals to raise funds for the party, I can say those proposals were never forwarded to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I will open the floor for questions on the press statement.
To jump in without even raising my hand.
Yes,
But the first thing I want to do is deal with the MOCA issue. I had a look at what transpired yesterday, and I saw you managed to get the people there to hold off. Question number 1. When that new road was being constructed, was there a plan indicating what was going to happen with the adjoining areas? I saw in today's papers that the housing minister talked about that place being used for drainage and ingress and egress and all of that. Was there such a thing in the original plan?
Not to my knowledge. I think the minister's been untruthful. When this thing started, they first said that the people were going to be in the path. The construction progressed. They are not in the path. If you go there, you will see there is adequate space for drainage. And right opposite in Horstelling, there are houses. But for some reason, the government is after the people in Mocha. You will note in the press statement that I pointed out that Irfan Ali, as Minister of Housing, went there knowing full well that the road was going to pass and not disrupt them, and actually gave numbers as lots for those areas. And so they knew full well that the people were not in the way, and they themselves went in and gave lot numbers. It does appear to me now, as they see the value of the area, they are seeking to take it away from them so that they could give it to themselves, their friends, their families, and their favorites.
Thank you. I see the hand of Ms. Tamika Garnett. Ms. Garnett? All right. Any questions on the press statement?
Yeah, hold on. If Ms. Garnett isn't ready, I'd like to add something else. You see, I have an interest in Mocha. My relatives are involved in that removal thing, huh? Some of them, and they were there, we spoke with them, the Ellisons. Now, some of these people were given money to remove, and the government says only 7 are refusing to remove. I see a statement by the minister saying that there are houses already constructed for these people to move in. It's part of the compensation package, a house, and what happens to the livestock that the people would have?
They claim, well, I spoke with one resident who said they said to them they were prepared to give them, there was no area to rear on the East Coast, so that they were prepared to give them some land on the highway. Now, it would be stupid for somebody of little means to have the house on the East Bank, but then they farm on the highway. That is additional cost which they might not be able to afford. But for me, all of those issues are irrelevant. What is relevant is that the land is the property of the people of Mocha Arcadia. If you go to the 1894 Gazette, you will see that when the free slaves bought those lands, all of those lands were included. And so to come now to say, I also pointed out in the press statement that confirmation that it was ancestral land and the people of Mocha land is the fact that Gaisuko used to pay to the local authority rates and taxes. So to come now to tell these people you have to move, after the president, then minister, said that they were given these numbers, is an indication that the people were not in the way. One has to ask the question, why suddenly they are in the way of development? They aren't. If you go down the said road, coming all the way from Mandela Avenue, you will see people occupying lands given by the government. Why soon as you meet Mocha, you need to move these people who are in the same areas that you yourself as government give to people? It is clearly racism and vindictiveness. The PPP doesn't like when you speak about their racism, but I offer them an opportunity to explain to reasonable people how is it all a way down. You don't want space for these drains, but suddenly when you meet Mocha, you want space for drains. And even if they want space for drains, there is adequate space for drainage. And so to me, like we said at the inception, it is racism and wickedness. I am prepared to be reasonable and sit with the leadership of the PPP and ask them to explain those anomalies. Because I don't think any reasonable person will accept that you allow people all the way along the road, but soon as you arrive at Mocha, those people must move. Don't forget, along that road, the government also put houses that are closer than the people at Mocha. If you pass through the section at Farm, and I checked it yesterday and day before yesterday, the people at Farm with houses built by the government are there. As you move up the road, you are seeing new construction closer than where the people of Mocha are. How on earth are you going to explain that when you arrive at Mocha, suddenly you need drains and all kinds of things, even though there is space for drain, and these people must move? I am not convinced that this has anything to do with development.
Thank you. I see the hand of News Talk Radio Guyana. You can go ahead.
You broke up a bit, Eric. Were you offered the opportunity?
Yes, sir. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Norton, given your responses to Mr. Mercy's correspondence, what action will be taken against him? And secondly, why did you include Mr. Mercy on your team?
Why did I?
Why did you include Mr. Mercy on your team for the party's congressional elections after he had openly welcomed the return of the PPP in 2020 general and regional elections?
First of all, let me say this to you. I thought, and still continue to think, that Marcelin was young, he has potential, and it is in that context. Also, I've seen the comments about the comments he made. In my opinion at the time, here was a young man in a particular context doing what he did. I had discussions with him, and like he said in his letter, he reaffirmed his commitment to the party. And on that basis, I thought it was a good opportunity to promote a young person. You would recall that I campaigned on the basis of promoting new young people in the party. And it is on that basis, remember as well that he campaigned for us in the 2015 elections, the 2020 elections, and the 2018 local government elections.
Right. Given the responses to his correspondence, what action will be taken against him?
I don't know there is need to take any action against him. Look, I've read in the press all kinds of things. Marcelin says he will remain a member of the party. I have revealed the situation as is. I don't know that we have to take any action against it.
Thank you.
And Mr. Norton, in relation to the Mokel and issue, what steps can be taken to seek legal redress on behalf of the residents there? And what role is the shadow housing minister playing in addressing this issue? Because apparently senior in the ground Litwin in dealing with the matter. And is she going to be part of the team that you would be hoping to interface with the government with? Because you said you were waiting to talk with the DP in this matter.
The question of a team to talk with government is something we'll decide when you need to talk with the government. I don't want to preempt. First and foremost in this matter is the people of Mocha. And therefore, I will continue to engage them, consult them, and based on what are their desires, the team will be determined.
Well, what role is Ms. Ferguson playing in the overall scheme of things?
What role is Ms. Ferguson playing in what?
In the overall scheme of things as it relates to the Mocha land matter and generally housing?
First of all, I must say this to you. I did not direct or instruct any member of parliament to go. All the members of parliament who thought they should go went. I didn't see Ms. Ferguson. I don't consider that to mean that she isn't interested.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garnett, are you ready now?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, sorry about that. My screen kept freezing. Not sure about that. I have a few questions pertaining to this statement. I have a question about Ms. Ferguson's involvement in, given that she's the shadow minister of housing. Mr. Norton, do you think that she should play a role, given that what this issue is about, and given that it falls under her area?
First of all, this highway is a public works matter. I found it strange that it's the Ministry of Housing that was acting. That's all I would say to you on that.
Ms. Garnett?
Yeah.
Your next question?
No, but he didn't answer the question.
I did answer the question. This is a public works matter.
No, but given that it is also a housing-related matter because it's a matter of persons and their property fighting for land that you're saying belongs to them and for them to be able to use it however they desire.
The
Do you
people,
not see
the people,
need for her to
the
be
people,
involved
the
in
people,
at some level?
the people are fighting for their lands. The member of parliament who is responsible for the East Bank is Nima Flu Bess, and she is involved. If she thinks in the process that she needs the support of any MP, including Ms. Ferguson, she is free to engage them.
Oh, okay. All right. Again, on the issue of the Mocha residents, the Ministry of Housing last evening released some claims that they're saying that the Mocha residents are demanding. So it's like they're not saying that they don't want to move. They're saying that they want particular amounts. By chance, did you get a chance to look at what the Ministry of Housing had released, or what was said about what the residents are demanding?
I did look at it and find it very disingenuous. You cannot claim to negotiate with people in such a circumstance. And you take families one by one and take them to the Ministry of Housing when the land is a community land, first thing. The second thing I want to say about this, like I said in the statement, when the PPP government engaged people in these matters that are in their strongholds, they are allowed legal counsel. These people were not allowed legal counsel. Many of these people tell us that they find it fishy that the checks that they got came from Citizens Bank and not Bank of Guyana checks. Many of them are of the view that the Ministry of Housing is fronting for some business people who want the land.
I'll follow up on the same issue. Do you think what the residents are asking for is unreasonable in any way, given the amounts that they're asking for?
Could you tell me what is the amount?
According to the Ministry of Housing, at least 4 residents are asking for $100 million apiece in addition to someone.
I assume you know about
One person is asking or demanding $150 million. One person is asking or demanding $45 million. And another person, I think, asked for an additional 3.5 after they signed an agreement and collected some money already.
It is not for me to decide whether it is reasonable or not. There are some things you should know about negotiations as a journalist. One, in negotiations, people tend to go way above what they want because it is a process of negotiation and compromise, and it might come down to what is acceptable to both parties. I cannot say to you what they said is reasonable or unreasonable. Additionally, I believe that if you are dealing with a matter like this, like I said in the press statement, this is a road. When it is completed, those lands that now value 10 million, in a very short time could value 200 million. So in your negotiation for compensation, that has to be taken into consideration. Anyone who would have seen the figures that the ministry put out as offering the people will know that that is ridiculous. And it doesn't cater for, one, the inconvenience caused by the government to the people, two, the fact that these are community lands, and really and truly the government doesn't own these lands. The people have the right. If the government is a serious government, what it will do is allow these people to have counsel, engage them, and have a proper negotiation. And if they resolve it and the people are satisfied, the people will take what is offered and move. But to bully people and sending in a man from housing who the people allege Mr. Aaron, who always comes create the confusion allegedly and stays in a vehicle while the police and some in the Ministry of Housing are on the ground doing nonsense and being destructive. If they should eschew that type of approach and become involved first in consultation with the village, second, in proper negotiations with the people and their legal representatives, then the matter could be resolved. But having said that, what the minister isn't answering is why all along that road, people of other ethnic groups, people that are close to the PPP, are allowed to stay there. In some cases, closer than the people at Mocha. How is it you want to move the people of Mocha when others are allowed to be on the same road? The government has built houses close on the same road. And more importantly, in the areas where they allow people to build, there is an African Guyanese in the United States of America who got land there and you're seeking to take it away. If you can give me any explanation outside of vindictiveness, wickedness, and racism, I'm prepared to listen with a reasonable ear.
Thank you.
The issue with Mr. Marcelin. Mr. North, I didn't hear all of the reasons that you read out, so I hope I can get the statement later on. My computer was freezing.
You'll get the statement, the written statement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Of what Mr. Marcelin was saying, from what I can gather, from what I did hear from the statement. Can you say, or do you know of any reason then why Mr. Morrison would choose this period of time to bring up these allegations against you and the party?
No allegation was made against me. If you show me anywhere in a statement from Marcelin, in fairness to him, he has made no allegation against me. The Chronicle, as a mouthpiece of the PPP, attempted to slant it to suggest. But I invite you to bring the letter or the document in which Marcelin made any allegation against me. Marcelin and I have always had a good relationship. You yourself, one of the journalists mentioned that he made some comments and asked me why is it that I put him on my list. And I said in clear terms, I think he has potential. I was prepared to and still prepared to work with him to realize his potential. And therefore, I don't want to speculate on anything. But what I know for sure is at no stage did Fayaz accuse me of racism. It is the spin of people in the press that place it there.
Okay, can I rephrase the question then? He did not accuse you of racial hostility. He said that he faced racial hostility from another member of the party, and it was brought to your attention. And I had a conversation with Mr. Marcelin, so this is my personal experience with him, not from the left.
Okay, did he share?
And it was reported to you. So he's alleging that it was reported to you and that nothing was done about it. That's what the allegation was.
First of all, you know, I am in no position to trust your word. But let's assume what you're saying is true. I want to say to you, like I said in the statement, if you were listening, Marcelin never raised the issue of racism with me. And had he raised it, I would have addressed it. In fact, all the speculations I'm hearing, Marcelin, with a number of us, worked in the Berbice area. We were always together, and I never heard of any question of racism against Marcelin.
All right, thank you.
So can you think of any reason why Ms. Marcelin would therefore just come up and lie about something like that?
The appropriate thing to do.
He's saying he loves the party so much?
The appropriate thing, mind you, The appropriate thing for you to do is to speak with Mr. Marcelin on the position I would have given.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll take the question from Mr. Shabra.
One final question. Does the party has any policy though if someone does bring up some issue like racial hostility? Is there a policy or a procedure for how it is handled? Or
The PNCR has always been, and I'm assuming you're talking about the PNCR. The PNCR has always been a party that embraces all ethnic groups. The party's policy is clear. The PNCR is for all Guyanese. And if anyone in the party becomes involved in racism, the party has mechanisms. And if perchance I would have been told that or had in writing anything from Marcelin on the question of racism, I would have ensured that there was an investigation in the party and the appropriate action taken based on the outcome.
Well, given now that he has written the party because he sent a letter to the CETEC, now openly claiming the racial hostility, will there be an investigation into his claims?
Do you want to say the allegation is against whom?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the person for libelous reasons.
No, in the letter, did he state who's the person?
He mentioned the name, yes he did.
In the letter that he sent
yes, he mentioned
to the CEC?
Of the person
I don't
that he sent to the CEC.
I don't
So
recall. I don't recall, but I will double check, and once that is the case, it will be dealt with. I am disposed to having a proper investigation into any accusation whatsoever.
All right, thank you.
But you want to mention the person?
I don't know if I'm not sure what kind of legal ramifications that may have for me, so I would rather not at this time.
Okay, well then if you're afraid of legal ramifications, you have the right not to mention.
I'm not afraid. I'm saying I'm not aware. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, so I don't want to put myself in trouble because I don't know. I'm not afraid to say, but I just don't know what would happen.
I respect your position.
Thank you. All right, I'll take that question from Mr. Shabra.
Yes, thank you. Still in the matter of investigations, but in relation to another matter, could you say, sir, what has been the outcome of the investigation into alleged irregularities at the recently held?
I don't know of any irregularities. In the letter, I did point out to you, from the letter, what I recognize is that Marcelin was saying he signed.
He's talking about
which letter? The letter from.
Speaking about the Georgetown election.
No, I'm talking about Ms. Ferguson's accusations of alleged irregularities in the Georgetown district elections. What's the status of that investigation?
I do not know of any irregularities, but I can say this to you. I spoke to Annette Ferguson, and I have said to her, I am inviting her to put before Mr. Hamilton Green, an elder in the party, whatever situation occur, and the matter will be dealt with by an elder at the party, since people in the party can be considered to be for or against. Until now, I have not heard that she has put it before Comrade Hamilton Green.
Is there a person by which she was identified?
When she spoke with me. And as leader, I thought it best to identify a respectable person in the party that is not really involved in the active activities of the party on a day-to-day basis. And on that basis, Hamilton Green was the person identified.
But is there a procedure within your regulations or the Constitution that allow for such matters, such investigations to be conducted in terms of the appointment or selection of a person?
There is in the party constitution provisions to deal with this matter. But there are also certain things the leader can do if people appeal to them. When Ms. Ferguson approached me, I said to her that I'm prepared to have this matter dealt with, position on how it should be dealt with.
Thank you.
Mr. Norton, under your leadership, since you won the congressional elections for your party, you faced a number of criticisms. There are also allegations, most recently the whole issue of Mr. Mercy, the demand checks, etc. How are you managing to keep the party afloat, viable, relevant, and in the whole body politic in the country, having the PNCR remain a viable force rather than one that may be perceived to be shaky?
Time will tell.
So you don't have any evaluation right now of how you receive this, notwithstanding all of what has been said about you and all your leadership?
The history of the PNC is that it has been a democratic party. Under Granger, there were criticisms of him. In similar fashion, the party survived. Under Corbyn, there were similar allegations. The party survived and strengthened. Under Desmond Hoyt, the same is true. And even Burnham, who was the founder of the party, there were criticisms of him. I am one who come to the leadership, accepted that there are people who are going to be critical of you even before you make the first step. So, in my opinion, it is part of the turf, and I will deal with it as we move along.
Do you think you'll win the leadership again in the next congressional elections?
When the next congressional election comes, the answer will be provided.
You don't feel confident enough to say whether you gain office?
I don't know that I am not confident. What I know, it is not very useful very early to brag about things into the future.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A quick question, please, sir. I saw on social media some report about hostile police action being threatened at Mocha. Have you been made privy to that, sir, and have you been able to track to find out whether the report is authentic?
Well, we have heard from people inside of the TSU that they have been given instructions to go to Mocha at some stage, and they claim to have the authority to use force. Remember that a lot of people in the police force have families in Mocha, and they are as concerned. While the regime is uncaring, whatever they are conceiving and planning, people know, and they pass the information on. That information has been passed on. One has to take this also in the context of Linden, where the PPP regime gunned down people over their rights. I will do everything as leader of this opposition and leader of the PNCR to ensure that people are not in harm's way. But the nature of this government seems to suggest that even if children in the building, they wouldn't care.
A quick question, sir, please. You said that the lands occupied by some of these people are ancestral lands. The move by the government is therefore irrational and I would assume illegal. Has there been any attempt to go to the courts as a Baronian we have done? We've gone to the courts to challenge any attempt to occupy our lands in the village. Has such a thing been done, or is being contemplated for Mocha?
I would say it is being contemplated. But if I know the government, what they will seek to do is to demolish, destroy people's livelihood before any court action is taken. That is their aim.
But Mr. Norton, this matter is weeks, probably months old. Why no court action has been taken before to avoid it to reach the stage of a head where there might be, armed action
As
against
far
the
as,
resident?
as far as I know, we had to do a lot of work to get the maps and a number of things which we now have. I don't think you could carry a legal matter to the court without evidence of the maps. At least that is what the lawyers say to me. And you would see in today's thing, I refer to the Ministry of Housing map, which has Caneview as part of Mocha Arcadia.
Mr. Norton,
And since those lands were purchased by the slaves, it is ancestral land rather than state land.
just bear me out. What evidence is there to say that these are ancestral lands? I just want to explain.
I just said to you, you can go to the 1894 official gazette and you will see when the land was allocated to the slaves who purchased it, that area was included. The 1894 gazette will give you that information.
And those lands have not been sold by people over the years?
Sold by whom? Only the village could have really sold them.
And there's no evidence of the village selling them?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
The most I know from the records I would have viewed is that the village was paid taxes, etc., by Gaisuko to use the land.
I just want to make one note here, because this is really, when you look at ancestral lands being treated in this way, a tragedy. And the reason that I think we as a country should be really ashamed that it has come to this is we should take great pride in the fact that freed slaves were able to repurchase these lands and to establish settlements there, which is something that you've not seen in every country where you've seen slavery. And actually the way that we should be looking at this is in terms of how we can preserve that legacy, how we can take pride in that legacy, how we as a country can be proud of that, rather than a really callous reading of both history and of the situation. And so it really is, I think, quite shameful that it has come to this. And I hope that the government can reflect on the history of Guyana and reflect on where we should all have national pride. Because irrespective of your race, irrespective of what part of the country you're from, you should be proud of the accomplishments that Guyana, over the course of our history, has had. And that's one of the accomplishments.
All right, thank you. All right, as we bring the press conference down to a close, I mean, all of the questions thus far has been on the press statement, so I'll give a quick moment for anyone who would like to ask questions outside of the press statement today.
Well, just as... so she has a question.
I see the hand of Ms. Garnett.
Hi. Yeah, my question of the press statement is about the recent split between the AFC and the APNU. Can Mr. Norton say how he sees the two sides moving?
How what?
Environment.
How what?
You kind of blanked out for a sec there. Could you repeat your question?
Certainly. Sorry about that. The connection's a bit bad. Can Mr. Norton say how he feels about now that the split and what it means for the relationship between the two sides as they move forward in Parliament?
Split is a word that was imputed by you, so I'm not so sure. You need to explain what you mean by split, and then I will answer.
The two parties have decided to go their separate ways instead of remaining in the coalition.
As I understand it, the AFC says it will do its work as a party, as AFC. Now, the AFC is entitled to do that. So it says that it will operate as APNU AFC at the level of Parliament. this position was presented to me. I listened to it. I will engage the central executive of our party on the matter, and we will have a definitive position on how we move forward. But we see no problem working with the AFC once the AFC continues to be supportive of the parliamentary agenda we agree on.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, does the party regret, and the AFD and you regret in any way some of the decisions that they have made in terms of how they've related with the AFC, particularly as it relates to the vice chairperson position in Region 10, given how that consequences if their member was not supported? First of all,
an AFC member was supported. I don't know if you know that Mr. Gorin is an AFC member, but having said that, I do not, I think we sit down, we analyze things, and we make decisions. In this situation, I don't know that there are any regrets. Probably with a longer view, 2020 vision, a couple of years from now, there might be. But for now, we are comfortable that we would have thought through our decisions and made proper decisions in the interest of our party, the country, and the coalition.
All right.
And just to add to that, you know, when it comes to working together on economic issues, working together on oil and gas issues, we've had a very good relationship with the AFC. We've been able to speak to their members. I've given comments to Sherrod Duncan on economic issues from time to time. I've spoken with MP Eureka Fernandez from time to time. And we look forward to having a good relationship where we can with the AFC members on various issues going into the new year.
All right, thank you so much. Given, I do believe I see no other hands raised.
Mr. Martin, if you allow, quickly, do you foresee the AP and AFC coming together again for the next elections, next general and regional elections?
You know, I read an article years ago on scientific prevision and concluded a lot of times prevision isn't scientific. And therefore, it would be not wise of me to seek to predict. It is my hope that we will at the next election. I heard or I read somewhere that Kemraj Ramjitan said that it's a possibility. We will do anything to promote unity in this society and among parties.
Thank you. I'll take the question from Mr. Adam Harris. I believe it's my last question as we are swiftly running out of time.
And Shanika, I want to make a
comment.
comment.
Yeah, related to just one observation. On Tuesday, the response of the various members of Parliament was rather rapid. Is this an indication that the Hobody Party is in direct contact with its leadership at all times and can mobilize at any time?
Yes, we are. We are in contact. I don't want to get into too much details about rapid response, but to agree with you, we are in contact and that we will continue to improve the ability to meet not only to the members of Parliament, but also to the membership in the party. I didn't hear that.
All right. I think Mr. Lowe has
thank
a
you.
comment.
So this is obviously the first press conference for 2023, and what we, of course, we are happy to see that the oil industry has continued to grow, that there's more production, that revenues will be made available to help develop Guyana. And that's something that doesn't always come across, but we want to really have Guyanese understand that we're happy that opportunities are present now and will be in the future. But what we also want to point out, and I share a couple stories with you to help us as Guyanese digest what is going on. I recall a few years ago, when I was pushing the free UG issue, people telling me that we don't have funds to afford this and we should spend the money in other areas. And I said to them that in a couple of years, just a few years, the idea that the University of Guyana should be a paid institution will be laughable. That is what is going to happen. And now we see again a situation where there are readily available funds to make the University of Guyana free. There is no excuse to keep the University of Guyana a paid institution. None at all. In fact, if we are going to surpass Trinidad and Tobago in GDP per capita this year, that would again cast irony on the University of Guyana being a paid institution. That's the first thing that I'd say. The second thing, and you may find this to be a funny story, but in my youth I remember wandering around a wealthy area in the US, Beverly Hills. I came across a bright yellow Bentley. I said to myself, oh my God, this is crazy, who would buy that? But just the other day I was wandering around the streets of Georgetown and I came across a white Bentley. Folks, the country is moving. There's oil money, there's people who are making tons of money and becoming quite wealthy. We need to ensure, of course, not to be able to get a Bentley, I'm not saying that, but we need to ensure that simple things like poverty do not persist in our society. Otherwise, we'll have a society where, which is what has happened in other oil economies, folks who are extremely wealthy and masses of people who are in desperate poverty. And so as we look at this new year, we have to have updated, further, more aggressive expectations about the minimum that a government can do to alleviate things like poverty and to ensure that we have a fair and just society.
All right, I need to cut you. I have to finish the press conference. My understanding is that they are breaking the houses in Mocha and they are seeking to arrest MP Nima Flo-Bess. And so I think my presence will be needed there. Okay?
All right.
Sorry about it.
Thank you so much for joining today's press conference. And we do hope to see you here next week. And for the media houses, as you would have just heard, the situation is escalating in Mocha. And it would be a good thing for you to come on ground and to see what is happening there. Do have a good afternoon.